I'm Eric from Longbox Review.
I'm Peter from the Daily Rios, and this is episode 39 of Eric and Peter's Legion Project Podcast. Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Legion Project Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Peter.
And I am Eric.
And we are back to talk about Legion of Superheroes issue number 39 from 1987. It has been, Eric, almost 3 months since the last time we recorded.
Really?
Yeah.
That long?
Yeah. We recorded in September, but we released the big 50th episode 38 in October.
Wow. I don't know. I guess I don't know. Maybe because I listen to you on the Daily Rios and CGS and
We
it just seems
talk
like
back and forth.
yeah, we're communicating all the time. I did not realize that. I thought it was just like maybe a month ago or so.
No.
Plus, we did spend and I put this out on Twitter, between episodes 37 and 38, which were extra special sized episodes. We did spend, what did I say? Almost 7 hours, literally almost 7 hours talking about those two issues, plus the other things that were related.
Right.
So yeah, that was, I think it was okay that we took a little
Sure.
recording break after that.
Right. And we didn't necessarily release those episodes at the same time on our feed. So,
That's true.
They got spread out, and that means 7 hours. That means, in actuality, the recording time was probably close to 8 or 8.5, because there's a lot of stuff that we talk about before we even hit record.
I was going to say the before recording and the after recording discussions that we have. Yeah, I'm sure it
could be a podcast themselves. So we're back. We are back. Episode 39, Legion of Superheroes 39. And it will probably feel like a little bit of like okay.
A little exhale. Yes.
Yeah.
After the greatest hero of them all.
Right.
Yeah.
But within that little time break that we had a major Legion announcement. There is a new lead. I mean, by the time people hear this, people have already obviously seen the trailer. There's been much discussion. There is a Legion of Superheroes animated movie coming out in 2023.
Yes. And not to be confused with the potential Legion of Superheroes animated series that we have discussed in the past, that Brian Michael Bendis was writing a script for. This is a Legion movie as part of the DC animated universe set of movies. The post, I can't believe they actually did this, but it's post Flashpoint DC continuity, I guess.
Right.
Of which I actually haven't seen too many of those movies. I saw the first Superman one. And I know they recently, I think the last one was a Green Lantern one. I'm sure they've had 40 Batman movies. But here we have the first Legion of Superheroes set in that continuity, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But there is an overlap with the Sook Bendis run.
Right.
But I'm sure we'll talk about that.
Right.
But how do you want to go at this, Peter?
Well, I mean, and all to say too, like you brought up that other animated series that was supposed to be, I don't know, on HBO or something like that. But who knows these days with the WB and with
the whole
merger,
Discovery thing,
Discovery thing, new bosses, new muckety mucks, new, it's like they are very literally having a crisis. The antimatter wall is going through and going, oh, there goes Patty Jenkins, up there goes, Henry Cavill, up. So who knows if that HBO
Oh yeah.
Legion thing will also just vanish into the
Yep.
antimatter wall, you
Yep.
know?
I yeah, totally can totally see that. So actually I'm
Or maybe I
so
should call it an antimatter gun. Ah, see what I did
oh
there? Oh,
oh my god. Oh, I lost. I now I lost what I was going to say next, Peter.
sorry.
That's all right. It's a better gun. That's great. Oh.
You know what's so interesting about this too is that for all of the missteps that the cinematic DC universe has had, and a lot of it really comes down where this is a total tangent, but actually it's not. A lot of it comes down to they're afraid to just let that ball roll. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? The
Mm-hmm.
minute it hits the smallest little ricochet or the little bump in the road, they want to do something different, right?
Yeah.
They're not looking long term. I don't even mean a long term plan. It's like something falters and right away they need to course correct, right? Think of the CW universe that went from Arrow to where it is now, about ready to close up shop if it hasn't already. We got one more season of Flash. Um, they have done so much with crossovers, with showing the larger DC universe. And the same thing with the animated movies. Like you just suggested, there is a pre and a post Flashpoint in these DC animated movies,
Mm-hmm.
which is like, they can't even get the live movies out of the golden age. And we're already in, they've already gone through decades of material in both the animated and the TV stuff. It's insane. It's kind of
Mm-hmm.
insane. So every time I see a new announcement about the movie, it's like, oh, I'm going to show a picture of Mr. Terrific. We already had Mr. Terrific in the Arrow universe. Oh, I'm going to show this. They already did Crisis. Like how are you ever going to beat the CW what they did and what they've done in these animated movies? Don't talk to me about money and scope of how many people are actually going to have eyes on it. I just mean in the sheer creativity, you already been there, done that. So,
Mm-hmm.
so it's like just same thing like with this Legion, like to go back to the trailer, part of me was like, didn't I see this on a Justice Unlimited episode?
That's what I thought too. Yeah, exactly. It is very reminiscent of that where they brought the Supergirl character back for was it one episode or was it two episodes? And I think I had the dimmest memory that that was supposed to be like a backdoor pilot for Supergirl and the Legion of Superheroes animated series
Oh, interesting.
that obviously never materialized.
Right. Right. So even in the animated universe, they tread certain ideas. But we talked about that before, like when we did the review of the Justice League versus the Fatal Five, how many similar scenes, especially opening scenes, were in when the Legion met Superman, when Legion met Supergirl, when it was like they constantly kept showing the same opening thing of here's the headquarters, here's a battle, they got to go back
Yeah.
in time. And it was the same exact thing they did in Justice League and Fatal versus the Fatal Five. So yeah, this trailer was I when it came out, people were very excited, and those lovely people linked us on Twitter because of this podcast.
Yep. Yep.
And then I watched it and I was like, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So what'd you feel?
um, well, other than so my first reaction was, well, this kind of reminds me of the Justice League Unlimited. But then it's like, well, okay, what can I glean out of this? What can I get excited about? You see the characters, what characters are involved. And then, they threw in the Dark Circle. I thought that was kind of interesting. That's you have to let me know because I didn't watch a whole lot of the Supergirl uh, um, live action show episodes
Right.
that featured Legion characters. So I don't know if the Dark Circle came in there, but if not, that's kind of a newish thing that they're bringing in. Uh, Quite honestly, though, I kind of get tired of Supergirl being treated like she's the novice. Uh, I realize in like a timeline situation, she may be new to the to this version of the DC universe, animated universe. But it's just like, well, give us a Supergirl that isn't trying to figure out her place and has to go train with the Legionnaires in the 31st century. So I don't know.
Right, right.
I'm still excited about it because it's Legion superheroes, and I like Supergirl. I think she's a. I've said this before. I think on this podcast. I think Supergirl is a much more interesting character than Superman,
Hmm.
or could be under the right creative team. So it'd be nice to see. It's always for these kind of things. It's always kind of like well, what variation of this character are we going to get now? What are the little new things, or how are they going to change this or that? And all this stuff. So
Right, right.
I mean, we do get Arms Fall Off Boy.
And a little tiniest appearance of Quizlet, right? That was,
Yeah, and yeah,
you know. And the style of the animation is slightly different. It almost looks kind of Ryan Sookish. I don't know if that's what they were going for, but
well, and they also included some of those characters or the designs for those characters.
sure.
Dawnstar looks like the one from the Sook the series. I swear I saw Monster Boy in
Hmm.
one scene.
Hmm. Phantom Girl she has the pink skin.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah, it's obviously they want to. We've talked about this before. How do you make Legion of Superheroes a property that people will get interested in? I always say you got to go the whole Sailor Moon, Power Rangers, make their costumes look alike, give them anything that has anything to do with, earth, wind, fire, water. Um, when you boil the Legion down to their basic elements, for kids or to attract a larger audience, it has to be that basic element. But they always want to wrap it up into Superman in the past and now Supergirl. So it's like,
yeah.
is that too much, right? Is it just, do you just make them their own entity so that people can understand that they're from the future? But the Legion started with a Superboy story, so I get it. I
Yeah.
totally understand why they're doing it.
It does appear though that they are I'm just guessing just based on that trailer, but it does appear that they are basing most of the story in the future and
Sure.
dealing with lost Legionnaires, the Dark Circle's involvement with that, and then Supergirl kind of either inspiring or leading or both the new recruits. Which, let's see here, who was it that we see that are like trainees?
Like
Uh,
Bouncing Boy,
yeah,
Invisible Kid.
yes.
Yeah.
Triplica Girl, I think. Dream
Hmm.
Girl, I saw in that. Quizlet, I don't know how much they're going to, but Arms Fall Off Boy, they gave significant screen time to in that trailer. I was like, what the? Anyway, maybe Timberwolf, but yeah, we Brainiac 5, of course.
Right.
And there's
Right.
there's going to be some conflict initially between the two, as we saw in that trailer, especially since apparently Supergirl is dealing with the tragedy, the loss of Krypton, or something, obviously having to do with Brainiac 5's ancestor. So all that kind of stuff. So
Right.
there's some potential uh, interesting variations of storylines that we've already seen many times over. So we'll see.
Yeah. We'll see.
I am very much looking forward to this. It
Sure. Of course.
probably be the first. You mentioned that the golden age before about the DC animated thing. That was the last one that I actually bought and watched.
Okay.
I forget what
The Justice Society.
was it. Just Society? Yeah,
Something. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, I might actually break down and buy this one and watch it that way.
All
So
right. So you're keeping DC of Warner Brothers afloat.
yeah, right. Well, somebody's got to.
And then the other little bit of Legion news, did you read the new Golden Age one shot? We
I
didn't talk
did.
about it. Okay. And way back in the Who's Who entries in the back, right? Not that we could actually talk about it, but
Oh yeah,
there's a Who's Who entry for Legionnaire.
right. and everything's redacted,
Everything's redacted except for the Legion flight ring
right?
on their finger, and then in the background, like classic Who's Who, and a time bubble.
Yeah.
So,
And a specific reference in the story, and I because I don't know where this whole new golden age thing is, like continuity wise, earth wise, all that kind of stuff. It appears like it's not part of the current continuity, but I'm not sure. And but there is a reference to a legion in one of the future elements of it, right?
right,
And so I'm like, is this, because I've always wanted to see like an Earth 2 Legion of Superheroes and what that would be.
right.
And I thought, am I finally going to get this after 30 some years?
Yeah, the time nature of it is, I just assume, especially because they call it New Golden Age, it's going to be it's Jeff Johns putting on his Roy Thomas hat
Mm-hmm.
and reshaping the Golden Age for this post rebirth, post dawn of the DC era, so which means you can do anything. Um, so especially because of the way he connected it from past, present, and then future, and then Legion future.
Mm-hmm.
So in a way that really only someone like Jeff Johns could. Um, but this has been teased in so much, Doomsday Clock and Bendis's title, and part of me feels like even though Bendis mapped out the whole Superboy being the inspiration for the Legion through the creation of the United Planets, like, are we trying to add yet another layer to the origin story
Mm.
with this Legionnaire character, or is it really, um, or what could be really interesting is if DC finally just says F it, and the inspiration for the Legion is going to be a character named Legionnaire in the future, in their own future, because
Mm.
that character was inspired by, I don't know, the Justice Society or
Yeah.
whatever. I don't
Yeah.
know. It's all speculation, right? And I'm not caught up on any kind of news drops, so people who are listening probably might have.
Mm-hmm.
I still haven't read Justice Society #1. I haven't read Stargirl yet, so there's probably more information out there. I just don't know what it is, but
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
very
Yeah.
tantalizing.
Despite what I just said, I realize that, they're not going to do this. The Justice Society title is not going to be like an alternate Earth version of these characters. It's all part of the whole thing. I know, but
Sure.
yeah, I just like that. I love the whole Earth 1, Earth 2 thing. So I want to see more of that. But it was nice because there was a Green Lantern like character in the future, in that future bit that we saw in that new Golden Age issue. I forget the other ones right. I just read this yesterday, Peter, actually, and as we're recording this, and I've already forgotten some of these characters, but it was kind of neat to see these future versions of these characters that are inspired by or direct descendants of the Justice Society. So it's
Right.
nice to see that.
And not the first time that the two teams have been connected, right? There was the whole JSA series with the Dark Lord, which was basically Mordru.
Right.
Starboy was in
Mm-hmm.
the next Justice Society of America series after that one,
Yep.
so there's been connections. I think what you mentioned about an Earth 2 Legion, wasn't there some hint of that when when Flashpoint was around or something, or in the New 52, like one of those Legion could have been on Earth 2, or maybe it was Earth Prime. I'm confusing it. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's been so long. So there's so many different versions of the Legion, and they all belong to a different time period, it seems like, and different whatever. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, gonna be interesting. Going to be interesting. Or it'll just be fade out, and because a lot of this feels like Johns wanted to do this like 5 years ago and only
Coming,
got around to it now.
yeah, coming out of Doomsday Clock, right?
Right, right.
Yeah.
And yeah, so there's a lot of like what's being held over, what's new,
Yeah.
And where does it all go? And if the rest of the DC universe doesn't play along in that sandbox, doesn't matter anyway. So
Mm-hmm.
we'll just
Mm-hmm.
have to keep watch.
As coming at this as a DC reader of the last 40 years or so, I don't care if it is in continuity or not. I just want an interesting story about these characters that I like.
Right.
So,
Makes sense. All right. I think that's enough preamble. Yeah. We have a couple more things we'll talk about at the end of the episode, including our contest winner. So you got to
mm.
listen. You're going to have to listen to the whole episode first.
The suspense is killing them, Peter.
That's right. We need to jump into Legion of Superheroes issue number 39. Let's go.
Alrighty. The One That Got Away by Paul Levitz writer, Greg LaRocque, and Mike DiCarlo as artists for the intro and outro segments. And we have guest artists for the flashback, which are Kurt Swan and Romeo Tangle. John Costanza, letterer, who, I don't know if you noticed this, Peter, in the Meanwhile column was recognized as a fan favorite letterer in that year's CBG Fan Awards. So that was kind of nice to see. Carl Gafford colors, Arnstar inking assist. Wait, did I get that? I think that's from an old notes. And Karen Berger is editor with a cover by Steve Lytle. All right. In a special flashback issue to Colossal Boy's origin, the Science Police Academy, and Gigi's musing over the one that got away. So, what happened in this issue? As I said, Science Police Officer Gigi Cusimano ponders a major decision she has to make, which leads her to thinking of Academy days on Mars, along with fellow cadet Jim Allen. Gigi and Jim spend a break from studies on Mars, cuddling tight, quote unquote, swimming and sand skiing. And it's on that sand skiing trip that a stray meteorite crashes near Jim, irradiating him and changing his RNA, he finds out later. While Jim is recovering with Gigi beside him, a prisoner in the medical wing escapes, which plays a major part in this. Later, Gigi and Jim are the only members of the science police around when a gambler shouts that his credit meter was stolen, and Gigi decides they, as cadets, should investigate. Seems like something that they would not want to have happen, but okay, oh well. She alone encounters the escapee, who then knocks her unconscious with a little thing that he was using to plug into a computer. I don't know. Anyway, decides to use her to help escape Mars. But Jim sees them and pursues them. The escapee hops on a lift, and then Jim's growing ability kicks in, forcing the escapee to toss Gigi and flee again. Concerned over being posted separately, Gigi recommends capturing the escapee to prove themselves. Eventually, they track him down, and after a short altercation, they do arrest him. After that, Jim's parents visit for Passover, and they discuss their son's future. Jim's father wants him to join the fleet, but his mom tells him about a strange new group of young people, all with bizarre powers. Jim decides to join the Legion, and while waiting to try out, befriends Reap Daggle and helps him come up with his code name of Chameleon Boy. After Jim joins the Legion, Gigi tells him that she's received her science police assignment under Lieutenant Zendak on Takron Galtos, and they part as friends. Back in the present, Gigi has made up her mind. She will accept her promotion to be Chief Cusimano of the Mars Science Police Detachment. A lot of plot for not, I don't know, not a lot of story. That doesn't make sense, I know, but there's not a lot of actual things going on here, but we do have a lot of plot points, I guess, that that gets covered.
Sure. Right.
Or maybe I'm confusing because it's a brief slice of the past that we're examining. And so we're getting the details of that fleshed out.
Right. Paul Levitz putting on his Roy Thomas hat.
Yeah.
And mining Legion continuity and
yes,
filling in some gaps here and there, and yet still dealing with a supporting character and a little bit of a subplot that has been going on since Gigi Cusimano was probably first introduced. You know, the stuff with Sunboy, her relationship with Colossal Boy and what that actually was, which until this issue probably was not necessarily a secret, but wasn't well known.
Right.
um, and giving readers a break after the Superboy story,
Hmm.
just like we got prior to Universo Project, just like we got after Eye for an Eye. These
Right.
kind of small stories, usually always a flashback, and then usually with a guest artist,
Yep.
and then the title goes on from there.
So that was something I was going to ask you. I meant to look this up and I just ran out of time. Of those flashback stories that we got, how many of them were done by Kurt Swan?
Oh, well, The Lightning Lass was done by Joe Orlando. That wasn't, well, yeah, that was also a flashback, also.
Hmm.
The Projectra and Pharaoh Lad and Invisible, who was the other one? Karate Kid story, that was by Greg LaRocque,
Okay.
wasn't it? I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think we made comment of how like it was. I can look it up.
I think you're right. Yes. Hmm.
Yeah. Uh we get Kurt Swan. Well, yeah, I guess we get Kurt Swan. We get Kurt like in those annuals, a couple annuals here and there.
Is that what I'm thinking of? Are the
Maybe,
annuals?
maybe.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. But I thought there was another one. I just can't remember it.
Yeah, I did too. But I was. I mean, it makes perfect sense for that time period and his association with the Legion. Years of association with the Legion. So,
Right.
but yeah, I think maybe I was confusing. You'd think after covering the Legion for the last 5 years, as we have been, I would remember these kind of details, but I do not.
No, no. We're still learning like we've said this way back in episode 1, I'm sure. We are learning just as much about the Legion but from our conversations, we're learning, I should say, we're learning more from our conversations than when we came into this podcast, and even though I'm a hardcore Legion fan, I'm not as in, it's not the information isn't there. And I always have to check myself. And,
Yeah,
I'm sure I say many things incorrectly. And I'm sure I say things that are against Legion lore, which that I love because sometimes I think they get a little stodgy with their Legion lore fans. They're like, well, no, this happened this way. And
right,
that I'm like,
right.
yeah, okay, whatever. Sometimes I get a little loose with that.
Well, this is a perfect example of perhaps that, or some reaction to that, because as you said, this is taking already established, I'll say facts for lack of a better word, of Colossal Boy's origin and expanding upon it, changing it a little bit, adding to the lore, right? So
Right.
there's no such thing as I don't know, a straight line, a strong point A to B situation with these characters and the whole idea, right? Because it's
Right.
constantly being added to, it's constantly being changed. So it's all good that we don't have this strict adherence to the past.
Yeah. I mean, there's two things in this story alone that I can think that one of them contradicts something that happened in a previous issue from
Mm,
the pre-Baxter run. And another thing is it's not necessarily, it's more of sort of like an omission, I guess you could say. For what reason, I'm not sure, but we'll talk about both those things. So
mm.
it's ever changing. It's a living, breathing document, as they
Yeah,
say.
yeah.
Whatever.
I mean, if you're going to have a publishing initiative such as these characters, not just the Legion, I'm just talking, DC Universe, Marvel Universe, any universe, it has to be a living, breathing, organically developed system. Otherwise, it will die out. We
Right.
wouldn't have these. We wouldn't be talking about the Legion nowadays
Right.
if it hadn't been developed over time like it has and developed that fandom
Yeah.
that we are part of.
Yeah. And I think that's part of the strength of this podcast too, is that we can be constantly surprised and we can go back as you said you did for this episode and look at some other things and how these building blocks are built, and then you can see where it breaks down and where they have to,
Yeah.
we readers forget that bit, but here's a new bit, yeah, it's this continuity has been going on since 1950 whatever. So it's going to keep changing, and it's still getting mucked with. We already talked about that, with
Oh
Bendis
yeah.
and all that other stuff. So it's like, okay, you know, here we go. This is where we are in 1987. That's all I can really
That's true.
say.
Mm-hmm.
So, um, so you're. It sounded like. Well, I don't know what it sounded like. So what did you think of 1958? See, I always get the year wrong. It's 1958. They first appeared.
I always think it's 1956, but that's when the Flash of Two Worlds, right,
Right.
came out, or yeah,
Yeah, Adventure Comics 247, cover date April. So let's see if it actually is. It's cover date April 1958, but when did it come out? God, see, this is I can't believe we're doing this on episode 39 of yeah, it came out in possibly February of 1958. Okay,
right.
so see,
Well, and
already wrong.
I'm gonna throw a plug to at the time of this recording, the last Comic Geek Speak episode. I think you talked about this on that episode about the whole Legion volume thing, and I know you mentioned it here
Oh,
on this podcast, but
yeah.
Peter brought up the whole volume 1, 2, 3, 4, and which the Baxter run, which is technically, well, according to some, technically volume 3.
Yeah.
which I think you think is supposed to be volume 2. Is that right?
No, I think it's volume 1
Oh, volume 1.
because it actually started with an issue number 1.
Oh, right. Okay, yeah.
That's
So
my argument. See? So like I say, I go completely against
yeah.
Legion lore, and that's the Scorpio in me. So so what are your thoughts of this story? What are your
um I thought it was a cute flashback story. Like I said, it kind of, it was retconning a little bit of the details, but of course the details that we have of Colossal Boy's origin are so sparse from before that it's not, I don't know if it's technically a retcon. I mean, some details are changed a little bit that we were told previously, but given the sparseness of information that we had before this, I don't know, maybe it's really not a retcon. It's just filling in those blanks. But interestingly, this is one of the things I liked about this issue a lot, was that it was told from a non-Legion member's perspective, and not, it wasn't told from the Legionnaire's perspective. Like I'm thinking of the Starboy origin retelling that we got, because he was kind of telling his own story, I think, in that issue.
right
And
to Wildfire in issue 306.
yeah, there we go. And I know what they did one on Wildfire. I can't remember if he was telling the story, if it was somebody else doing that same thing. Anyway, but we get it from the perspective of Gigi, who, they had a relationship in this. That was, like you said, like you mentioned earlier, that I think that was mentioned or intimated. I'm not sure what the
Oh,
exact.
oh yeah. Prior to this, yeah, there was
Yeah.
that backup story. So it's funny you brought up 306 because 306 has a um, scene with that Starboy origin story that could basically take place after this issue. It's when she goes to Takron Galtos with to meet Lieutenant Zendak, and that's a continuation of the story, yet it was written 4 years earlier.
Yeah.
But the other one that you're referencing is Tales of the Legion 320, that backup tale called Triangle, which was Gigi trying to get Sunboy back for all of his, leading her on. And that's where we kind of get this notion that Colossal Boy and Gigi have had a previous relationship. We just didn't know exactly what it was.
Right. Okay. Yeah. I completely forgot the issue and everything, but yes, I remember something in the past had happened there.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I really like that we get this Legion tale told from Gigi's perspective, and she's been since Legion 301, I think was her first appearance. Okay, Peter's nodding, so that's good that I got that right. So this character that we've seen for now, I don't know, well, we say 306 was 4 years, so about 4 years prior to this, we've had this character showing up periodically, and not only that, but she has had quite the connection to the Legion that we weren't aware of before. Just, and I'm not even just talking about the relationship with Colossal Boy. She was very supportive of. I'm sure we'll get into the plot of this, but very supportive of him and what he decided to do with his growing ability. And then just being part of the science police and all that entails with the Legion. So I really like that. The thing I didn't like about that particular aspect was that this is a story about Colossal Boy. He's the quote unquote hero of the story. Not really, it's really Gigi, but but he's so Colossal Boy is just so humdrum of a character. And it's just a weird dichotomy that we get. The like I said, the quote unquote hero of the story just comes across as so milquetoast.
He really is personality light.
Yeah.
It wasn't until the whole shrinking Violet, oops, nope, she's really Yira, that I feel like he got.
That is true.
Something other than the other Legionnaires,
Yeah.
He's a visually interesting character. I love when they go bonkers with his growth, like in those issues where he found out that Violet wasn't Violet, and he starts tearing like one of those places apart, and he's growing bigger than he probably ever has, and they're all like, whoa, Colossal Boy, or his fight with Duplicate Boy, So visually you can do some fun things with him. But yeah, he is just another brown-haired Legionnaire male, and Levitz has been very smart about building up the female side, not to be binary, but the female side of things in this title. So that's a plus to tell the story from Gigi, because if you told it from his point of view, it would be
true.
2 pages,
Yeah.
But also, let's tell it from, like you said, a supporting character, but also a female supporting character. And then there's other reasons why Paul also is using this character as well. So,
right.
Yeah. One thing about what you said, I'm also not a stickler on the whole, like, what's a retcon and what's just a story,
Yeah.
Like a retcon to me has to be something that is fundamentally changes whatever it is it's dealing with, or changes what you know, or it's really digging into the root of a character or whatever, or a situation. If a person, soap operas, I always go back to like soap operas. When you find out that Adam Chandler has a twin, that's not a retcon, that's just story development, right? If they never mentioned a twin before that, and then they suddenly mention a twin, that's not a retcon. It's just like, oh, what can we do with this character, right? The term retcon came into it came into our minds with that All-Star Squadron series. I can remember Roy Thomas writing about it in letter columns. There's this new phrase, retroactive continuity, which is what he was doing. And you could say he was fundamentally changing the whole Earth 2 aspect, because he was adding this whole new team of the All-Star Squadron, right? So that's sort of like a middle ground, like fundamentally changing, yet it's really just filling in the gaps and telling new stories and whatever,
Right. Yeah.
But this feels like, like you said, you did the deep dive on Colossal Boy, and if it doesn't counter anything, there might be some discrepancies with dialogue. And one of the things I mentioned that felt like an omission, when Colossal Boy and Chameleon Boy get sworn in, Invisible Kid should be there, because in the story with Supergirl, when the first time they say to her, let's go join the team, the 3 of them are there. They're already members or member applicants or whatever. And in the what is it, the Secrets of Legion of Superheroes, I think they also show
Mm-hmm.
the three of them together, you know, and like, and he's not here now, so that's a strange. It's like, what, I don't know if you have thoughts about that.
Yeah.
We don't
Well,
have to get in that now if you don't want to, but that's
mhm.
one of the things where it does feel like that's not a retcon. I just feel like it's Levitz just didn't want to go there for some
Yeah.
reason.
Add an unnecessary detail,
Sure, right,
or to an already visually packed um issue. Kurt Swan just going to town with all
sure.
these characters, and not even the Legion don't really show up that much in the issue. It's just a bunch of background characters and lots of Gigi and Jim, and so, but it was an unnecessary detail.
Having to design so many different locations, a prison, Mars, a casino, the crime watcher thing, a restaurant. I mean, he's Kurt Swan, he's not drawing 1,000 characters, which I remember Paul Levitz was like, he doesn't want to draw 1,000 characters,
Yeah.
but he's drawing 1,000 backgrounds,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And you could also argue it's Gigi's memory, and maybe Invisible Kid is there. He's just invisible.
Yes.
So whatever.
I'm sorry, that joke never gets old. I love that one.
So
I do, just to add on to that. I did. You mentioned a deep dive in Colossal Boy. It's not that deep because it's Colossal Boy, but
right.
that was one of the things I was like, what this doesn't. I have to check into this more because this doesn't make. And it was all about the who was Legionnaire when in the timeline that we get in this issue. So I was going through that. So yeah,
that's another headache. That's another dangerous headache. Yeah, my deep dive, no, it wasn't a deep dive, but I read bits and pieces of 306 for the Gigi thing, and then I've read the Triangle story again, and just to kind of catch up, because she is one of my favorite Legionnaires supporting cast members.
yeah.
But this story, I was, it was okay. I don't think it's so out of the blue. Like, I've read some reviews where they're like, what is this story by Gigi? Like, what? Why do we care about her? Why is she telling this story? Yeah, there was one or two, you know how they get. But we've been following this stuff for a while. She was in the Legion of Subs special because of Sunboy.
Mm-hmm.
She had that backup, which we didn't talk about, but we've referenced that backup tale, the Triangle one, where she's trying to get back at Sunboy, which is the reason why I think that then the sub special came after that, I think, or before, I don't remember. But she's been in the background and constantly having this thing with Sunboy. And it's just one of those small, tiny subplots that Levitz is throwing in there because he likes the character, because it's modeled after the woman he married, so it's like, this almost felt like an anniversary gift to his wife.
Wait, did I completely forget this? Have you mentioned this before?
We've talked about this before, sort of like in small instances.
Okay.
And he has referenced it in one of the letter columns that Gigi Cuisimano is modeled after a woman named Jeanette Cuisimano, whose nickname was Gigi, I'm assuming, who was a friend. Yes, it's in letter column, the letter column for issue 16. Gigi Cuisimano is named after a high school friend of Karen Berger's that eventually worked for DC and who eventually married Paul Levitz in 1980.
I did forget this completely. Yeah,
Right.
I remember now we talked about it. Okay.
And then if you read there's a small, one little tiny paragraph from 75 Years of DC Comics, The Art of Modern Mythmaking by Paul Levitz, that giant book from Taschen that he wrote a bunch of years back. And they go through, it's more of like a visual coffee table book, but then they have timelines, and they went to 1980. There's a small little paragraph. The DC staff celebrates the impending wedding of two of their own, editor Paul Levitz and direct sales coordinator Jeanette Gigi Cuisimano. the first such wedding since Julie Schwartz married Jean Ordwin more than 30 years before.
Hmm.
Levitz reportedly pays Schwartz 5 cents in royalties for the idea of marrying the prettiest girl in the office. Kind of
Ooh.
gross.
Yeah.
So he's putting her in a book and then writing a story about it. And I'm thinking, okay, what life decision was she going through that he was like, I'm going to surprise her with this issue? Like, that's the ultimate, you know, big D energy right there. I'm going to write a comic book about you, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
wow. And that's why I think this story exists. And I also feel like, but it is also earned within the continuity that we've been talking about, within the subplots that we've been talking about. It's,
Yeah.
she's part of this book.
Yeah. And I know we don't like to jump the timeline, but as I understand it from the reading the letter column about this issue, we're about to see her more in an upcoming story very, very soon, as I understand it. But so wait, I have a couple questions now, if you don't mind.
Okay.
So, what did the real life Gigi think of Kurt Swan drawing her, for example, or any of the artists, right? And then, so when Gigi first appears in issue 301, so that was you said that was about 4 years
That was
prior to this.
1983. Yeah.
Okay, so they were already married.
Yes.
Okay. So he just puts his wife in. That's
Well,
awesome.
and Karen Berger's the editor.
Right.
So, look, it's been done before and it's going to continue. Nepotism is no strange thing to whatever. Big Barda is technically Jack Kirby's wife, and I don't know in what regards, but they always say, I don't know if he modeled her after his wife, or she just, or the person. I don't know what it is.
Yeah. Okay.
So.
Yeah, that's fun. That I love that real life connection to these characters that we love so much. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So the story was fine. I walked away and I knew going in it was a breather issue. There's absolutely no mention of the Superboy thing. I mean, the only other Legionnaire that we see is Sunboy, and we see him for one little panel, and of course he doesn't make mention to anything. Again, when does the story take place? I don't know.
Right.
So,
right.
And that's okay. I don't need it to connect. It's part of this title's continuity that they like to take a breather, whether it's to give. Well, and it was bring in Kurt Swan so that Greg LaRocque can go work on the annual. That is the very next issue that we're going to cover. So, I can't fault it for if I just didn't attach to it, because like you said, Colossal Boy is no great character. And ultimately I was like, okay, fine. I now know how this story fits within our larger reading. To me, that's worth it.
You and by fitting into the larger reading, you mean just the how Gigi fits in with the Legion, and like I said, stuff that probably is coming up.
Yeah, and based with, like to go back to Legion 306, where Starboy talks about how he's the most powerful Legionnaire at that time, right? When he has all the powers. And something happens on the planet Tacron Galtos before it's a prison planet. The SPs thought they were going to have their base there. And then the prisoners overrun the base, so they send Starboy because he's the most powerful, and they want to do it on the sly. Gigi and Zendek are already there, and they're being treated poorly by the prisoners. Starboy shows up. He loses his powers. The only thing he has are his density mass powers, which he hasn't used since he was a kid. Winds up causing a collapse of a building. He gets caught in the collapse. The SPs use the confusion to overrun the prisoners, and then that's the last you see of Gigi. And that story takes place after this one because she says, I'm going off to Takron Galtos, right? Like, so
Mm-hmm. Okay.
those stories now make sense to me, the pattern, the pathway. And it also makes sense, like in that story, she was saying to Zendek, that's okay, the Legionnaires are going to help us. And he was like, they're not, what are they going to do? Well, she's already had an adventure, a love interest with a form with someone who's going to become a Legionnaire. She's seen the Legionnaire. She's seen the pomp and circumstance of putting these two new characters within their team. She understands it's very early in their career. They only have 7 members at this point, but technically really 8. But who knows? So she's already been invested where the larger universe has not to some degree. So, she's very much kind of like a point of view character for the development of that team, which is always fun to see. It's not just RJ Brand, it's not just Siobhan Aaron. It's one more person who has an invested interest, but is not afraid to yell at Wildfire when he's acting like a fool.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So.
Okay, so oh man, I am now very interested in this whole Gigi, Siobhan, Legionnaire connections, and now as we discover at the end of this issue, it's now Chief Cusimano, where Siobhan is, I assume she's technically
Still
a subordinate to Gigi, and in issue 301, Siobhan is introducing Gigi to the Legion, and she comes across as very much like a new, I don't know if it's a new posting or she's just overwhelmed because, and no, that's kind of a change thing because she comes across as like, I've never seen a Legionnaire before, and
yeah.
obviously she has,
Right.
But just that whole career path, and I don't know, all these connections. It's like I actually want a little bit more, especially between Siobhan and Gigi and their relationship as it's developed over that time that we now know they've had some connections to.
Right. And I think that's part of the reason why the bookend of this story, I don't know if this is necessarily the correct way to say it. I didn't fall for it. She has this box. She has a ring box.
Yeah.
She's talking about, maybe I need to stop flirting and settle down.
Mm.
So some readers are, I saw a review where they're like, they thought it was a marriage proposal. You get Sunboy who comes in and say, give me an answer.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, oh, Sunboy, you complicate my life. And now let me tell you why in this flashback, right? And then you go to the end and it's not a ring. Her decision is a career path decision, not a marriage path, right? It doesn't work for me because as soon as I don't know if I know I've read this issue before, I think, but as I was reading it and she's looking at the ring box and never once did I ever think it was a marriage proposal because it's Gigi.
Mm-hmm.
She doesn't think in those terms, like
No.
what you just said. She's far more engaged in her career than Siobhan is.
Mm-hmm.
She's much more forward thinking. She's much more
Commanding.
Commanding. Yes, that's a great word. I never once thought it was a marriage proposal for.
I didn't mention this in my initial thoughts, but is that whole red herring was just that was the low point, I guess, of the plot of the setup, right? But it's like, yeah, I like you. I was like, there's no way, and the way it's the way it was Paul really stretching the idea to hide for some reason the quote unquote surprise ending.
Right, and I mean, I guess that's what you have to do, right? If you're writing the story, you have to have some tension for the casual reader who,
sure,
didn't read a Legion comic for 30 days and doesn't think about the story in the way that we've been thinking about it,
yeah.
And they're just like, what? Sunboy, what? No, she's not. And then you get to the end, you're like, oh, yeah. These little breather issues, they often feel like inventory stories. They often feel lighter in terms of the writing, and I think it's just more of that, and probably Levitz is like, I hope my readers are smart enough that they know that this is not a marriage proposal. That's what
Mhm.
I'm hoping,
Yeah, yeah.
because he is a little clinical, he is a little dry, he is a little sort of, he's probably like, if this was Claremont, it would be pages and pages of her pining over this decision, and
The angst, yeah.
yes, the drama, but it wasn't. It's Gigi, it's Paul Levitz. This book is very, it is what it is, and I love it for it. So
Yeah, yeah. Very true. So that was a long initial thoughts, I think. do, do, do we want to do you want to start with talking about the cover, or is there more to
oh God, yeah, we got to do the cover, our format, right? Yeah. Yeah,
It's
because
been a while, folks.
I don't have many other notes beyond what we just
That
discussed.
that
So
that is true. I
yeah,
same thing.
yeah. Let's go to the cover. What your thoughts on this Steve Lido beautiful
Well, there you go. I thought
young
it was,
romance in love,
yeah.
young teens in love?
I love I love it. It's so simple. It's got a bunch of the Legionnaires in their old costumes, their Silver Age costumes. He does the that era of the Legion very well. And although I will say his Cosmic Boy looks a little too much like a Magnetic Kid, but other than that, it's wonderful. He's is he kind of evoking Kurt Swan too a little bit, I think. But then there's the background with this. Is that like I don't know, pencil? That's those are pencils, right? Those are, I'm assuming these are just straight pencils that they threw on, not threw on, but they published like that.
Yeah, it
Like,
feels that way.
yeah.
It does also feel like there's some inking, but maybe it's a mixture of both.
Yeah, I think so. I think you're right. I think, but you have that aspect of it. The looking the future or the current people looking back on the past, which is what we're seeing in color in front of them. The construction of it, I think, is just really, really well done.
And a great visual cue for the inside story. Like you see it and like right away you're like, oh, this must be a flashback tale issue, or
Yeah.
at
Mm-hmm.
the very least there's going to be something to do with them in the past.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, totally agree with that.
What did you think of speaking of the current timeline of the characters in the background there, the way their facial expressions, I found those curious, because Colossal Boy's eyes are focused, because he's kind of looking, he's not looking straight on at us, right? And so his eyes are focused on their past selves in the middle of the cover, but his mouth is slightly open. I don't know. It just, this image of Colossal Boy gave me a hint of more personality of this character than anything else I have ever gotten from him.
Right. And Gigi's face too. I mean, if you take out the foreground images, if it's just maybe, if it's just a conversation between the two of them, or it could be that he's having a conversation with someone off screen and she's back there going, she knows him more intimately than
Yep.
anybody else, or at least she did, we should say. Maybe
Right.
she doesn't quite know him, but they're still friends now,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think there's many ways you could look at it, or it's also, it gives Steve Lido a chance to do uh, a sequence like that, or a headshot like that. Let me just focus on the eyes and let me try to capture their personality within their face. Can I do it?
Yes.
You could even almost see it as Colossal Boy being a little unsure, not necessarily in a way like he's not like a Tellus or anything like that, but he's for the big man in the room. Is there any wonder he went after Shrinking Violet? Let's put it that way.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Is there any wonder why he went after the other quiet person, other than them just having the difference of one grows and one shrinks, which is amazing. Right. But
mm-hmm.
I can see why he would want to pick the wallflower, because he probably is. I don't know. I haven't read enough of them like you say, he's a bland guy. He blends into the wall. So Could be him just, it's the woman behind the man, right? Like that old phrase. So
Mm-hmm.
maybe it's
Yeah.
something like that.
Well, and yeah, I love when you throw things out like that, because then I'm thinking, had they stayed together, imagine what Jim may have accomplished as a Legionnaire, or personally. I could totally see Gigi being so supportive and such a strong partner with him, that would inspire him to do more, perhaps, or do things differently, be less of a wallflower.
Right. And he's not gonna he doesn't like it when they after the Legion ceremony, and he wants to say something to her, and she just there's that directness, and she just stops him and say, look, we knew this was going to happen. The Legion is for you, the SPs are for me. Here's a kiss, I'll see you around.
Yeah.
And he watches her go, and she might be crying, she might be sad, who knows. She doesn't care. She's off to a whole new thing. They're also young, right? Like to
Yeah.
be a Legionnaire, you got to be under 18, and they're romping around planets and fighting, crime, and doing the nasty, and like, I mean, they're in a deep relationship for only being 16,
I
17.
I totally forgot about that. You forget about that aspect, right? Because they're cadets for the police, the science police, and yeah, and they're, like you said, they're very intimate with each other. And what? Yeah, that what
Mm-hmm.
kind of what
It's the
kind of a
future, man.
society is the 31st century or 30th century? Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Morals.
They,
No,
after 1,000 years, I would hope that humanity has
I would
evolved,
hope so. I would hope
and
so.
these arbitrary uh, uh, rules that we have developed as a society today don't really apply anymore.
Yeah.
Although I wouldn't want my 16-year-old daughter to be doing the stuff that they're
Right.
doing.
Right. So the idea for the Legion was his mom's, right? Like when they finally get to that conversation, like, all right, you now, I'm jumping around just because
Mm,
that's where the conversation is going.
sure.
Um, when they're like, all right, you got these powers, you probably can't stay in the SP. The dad right away wants to put him in the military, and then the mom's like, well, there is this thing happening, which feels very much like the way Mark Wade handled the Legion. There's a whole bunch of young people getting together. Why don't you go try it out? And um, I kind of wish it was more from Gigi's point of view, but then I also like that it's from his mom's point of view, his mom's suggestion.
Oh, the idea.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but she is smart enough. What does she say in the beginning? She says, identify, analyze, and then decide. And that's drilled in their academy days, and that's drilled in this bookend story. And then she's like, okay, I can make, if he can't make this decision, not that she says this, but it's like, if he can't see that we can't be together because we're going to be part of two different things, I need to make the decision, and I'm going
Well,
to go.
okay, yes, but at the same time, he did make the decision for them in some fashion, because he goes and tries out for the Legion.
Right. But I think, well, you're right. I mean, we don't really know, did he want to stay with her, or was he going to be the one to say, how are we going to do this?
Yeah.
You know? Um, Young love, sometimes just goes. And then that's why they have that intimate connection now, because they're like, in some ways, maybe they never really stopped having a connection, but it's just moved from romance to,
Oh
you know,
yeah. Yeah.
something
I
else. But
I can totally see that. Yeah.
yeah. Or maybe he's been chasing a Gigi all his life. No, I don't think so.
I don't know. That makes a lot of sense to me, given what we're shown here, because with the whole shrinking violet thing, it was just, on page, it was just kind of you would kind of see them, I think, and I'm just again going by my really poor memory,
Right.
but you would kind of see them flirting in the background in some scenes. And even that was an eye-opening situation, given that they had never really shown those two being interested in each other. But that was just, the brilliance of Levitz's plotting to introduce that whole Yira storyline.
Right.
But I could totally see Jim, because like I said, the way that they're shown in this story, he's trying to recapture that in some way. Again, it's no, this is really stretchy, a shorter partner. Physically she's shorter, but a dark haired, although I would not have described Shrinking Violet as a strong-willed character.
No.
But then again, we also like Colossal Boy, we didn't really get a lot of background on the character before. So anyway, I could totally see him chasing after that the idealized Gigi that he may have in his mind.
Right. Well, wasn't the whole thing that Yira as Shrinking Violet actually came on to him?
Yes, you're right. You're right.
Right. So there it is, right? Otherwise he never would have followed through on anything. And you certainly know that Yira wears the pants in that relationship.
Oh yeah.
The times that we've seen them together. So
I think maybe anybody that Jim is with is going to be the one that wears the pants.
Exactly. So,
but I have to say, that going back to the whole.
Well, we were talking about the cover. Are we done with
the
cover? Yeah. That all came out because of the cover.
Yeah. That whole idea of them being maybe 16 and science police and stuff, and just one of the first things we see between these two, I thought was really interesting. They're shown in class. This is before their break, and they go off and do those things, and he gets hit by the meteor radiation. But Gigi's playing footsies with him at the front of the class. I mean, that girl she is something else. She is a firecracker. I think at this point, Jim's like, I'm the luckiest guy in the world to have this person interested in me.
Yeah.
I don't know where we're going with this, but I'll just because I'm talking about this scene, Peter, the instructor, he's talking about, don't embarrass the science police in your off-duty activities. You are no longer children. And the way Kurt Swan has drawn that instructor, he is directly looking down towards Gigi as she's putting on her boot after playing footsies with Jim. So I just thought that was a very wonderfully constructed panel.
I was kind of surprised at how much their relationship, their romance was. I'm sure someone could make the argument that they're not really doing anything, but I don't buy it for 1 second, because they're in robes and they're kissing and canoodling and they're constantly talking about physical stuff,
Yeah. What did she say? Jim and I spent days talking of our future as SPs and as a couple, cuddling tight. And I think there's another, that scene you mentioned with them in their robes.
Yeah, time enough for that when the sun's up, love.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, right. Yeah, there's no way that this is a chaste relationship.
Right. It's not Element Lad and Schwan, that's for sure.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, it's almost like the complete opposite of that. Yeah. Which is great. I mean, I think we've already seen that kind of relationship. Let's see something a little different, even though it's in the past. So
yeah,
you mentioned the Gigi wearing the pants. I had in my notes, Gigi calls the shots. So she awakens Jim from his slumber after he gets irradiated. Kind of inverting that whole true love's kiss trope, which I thought was kind of neat. She's the one who convinces Jim to help that gambler, and then starts pursuing that escapee, which is the major plot point of the story. And then the whole bit at the end where she tells him about, being in the science police is what she wants for her life, despite now making that choice. She loses her relationship with him. And of course that through line through the end, to now, the now point, she continues to want that career, and has been posted to chief. So I just, the strength of that, and the not just the strength, but the consistency of that character, I enjoy that through the whole thing.
Yeah. It's also there when she's the one who goes to the crime watcher room and she's able to use it to find out where this escapee is. She's smart. She's not Brainiac 5 smart. She's got skill.
Yeah.
And she's got the temperament to use those skills. And you don't get much emotion from her, but she doesn't come across as cold, which I love.
Yes.
Right? She's not Saturn Girl or whatever that stereotypical personality is,
The
she's
Ice Queen. Yeah.
Yeah, she's got emotion, and she's got love and caring and all that stuff, but she doesn't need to whimper and cry, and she doesn't need to. It's Levitt's. I mean, okay, we already talked about it. It's Levitt's. This is a flesh suit for his wife, a fiction suit for his wife. But she's always been brassy, and she's always been confident. She's so confident. Look, you got to be confident if you're dating Sunboy, right? Or if you're daring to date Sunboy.
And not only that, but Sunboy is pursuing her to a large degree, and
often,
yeah, and she is, to me, that relationship is like, yeah, he's fun. I'll hang out with him, but it's nothing serious.
Oh no, I think there are a couple times in those flashbacks, even in that, I think there was a point where that's why she was so frustrated with him, that she didn't like him leading her on.
Okay. You're right.
You know what I mean? So either in her mind, she was either, I really did want something with Sunboy, or if this is going to be fun, don't treat me like, like something on a shelf. I'll have fun with you, but you better treat me, the way I deserve to be treated. So
that's probably a good way to think of it. I was also thinking, it's like she may have been interested in him at one point, but when she realized, oh, that's not going to be, she's like, I'm, whatever, I'll hang out with you, but
right,
I am, I'm very much this strong-willed, confident person, and my career, I think, has been one of the constant things for that character too. Is because she wants to do more and become more in the science police.
And doesn't she say a new record for how quickly I earned my starburst? Yeah, she's got it going on, man. That's why I love her.
God, what is that? What does that mean, though? Given the track record for this title and these characters, things are going to go badly for her soon. I just know it.
It's Gigi. It can't, again, fiction suit for his wife.
Not through her, any fault of her own. Just that I think Levitz is going to throw a lot of obstacles in her way.
I hope this is the end of the whole Sunboy thing. I just thought it was. I thought we were already done with it, but now it's kind of okay. Can we be done with that? Like, it's we don't need it anymore. I don't need it anymore.
I agree with you, and I think we see that in. So I'm looking at the panel, the bottom left panel on page 2, where she just listened to Sunboy's message, and she, Sunboy, you're confusing my life. You mentioned that earlier, but the way that LaRoque draws it, it's more like she's physically waving him off with her hand, which is, of course, to me, the hugest clue that this is not about a marriage proposal. It's like, dude, I'm having a bit of a existential crisis in the moment. Go away.
So, what did you learn about Colossal Boy? We should really talk about him too. Like, what did you learn in that reading of going back, and what are some things?
You're talking about like those details and stuff?
Yeah.
I'll start there. Because, what did I learn about Colossal Boy as a character, as a person, uh,
Nothing.
not a whole lot.
But the publishing aspect of it, what did you learn about that?
Let's see here. So, all right. So, Action Comics 267 was his first appearance, but he was already a member in that issue. Then information offered in Secrets of the Legion #1. This is where I mentioned that maybe there's a little bit of retconning here, but Jim was, so it says Jim was hiking alone when the meteor fell on Mars. And it also specifically, I actually pulled that issue out and was reading through it. It also tells of his parents recommending the Legion to him, and that he applied twice, which we don't see here. And I couldn't find if there was another source that corroborated that applied twice thing, if that happened in another issue or whatnot. But all of the resources that I was looking at, as far as cataloging his appearances in the Legion issues, I looked through those, and it was basically he was there. It wasn't about him. Like I said, Action 267. The founders bring Supergirl to the 31st century, and you talked about that. I don't remember which episode it was, but you talked about that particular issue, because they are portrayed, or they announce themselves as the children of the Legionnaires that Superboy met. So, which of course that was done away with.
Right.
Like I said, we see Jim as a member, along with Chameleon Boy and Invisible Kid. So there's that whole Invisible Kid connection. But it was that, and the reason I did that, it wasn't because I was necessarily interested in Colossal Boy himself, but it was Gigi's, that scene where he is inducted into the Legion on page 24, where Gigi says the Legion was only 7 members strong, and they had a flair for pomp. So, and I counted the Legion in this in this scene, and I don't come up with 7 members. And if you count the 2 new ones, Colossal Boy and Chameleon Boy, not Invisible Kid, unless he's standing there in that little blank spot, as you facetiously mentioned earlier. Right. Then you have 7, but you wouldn't say they were part of the Legion as 7 members when they were being inducted into the Legion. I don't know. It just seemed like a weird reference. So I'm like, well, wait a minute. So in looking at publishing continuity, who were the 7 that she's referring to? Let's see. So I see, in this scene, I see Cosmic Boy, Phantom Girl, Saturn Girl, Lightning Lad, and Triplicate Girl. They're all standing there in the scene. That's 5. In the background, we see what looks like Brainiac 5 and Shrinking Violet. But that seems weird. If they're Legionnaires, they would be standing with the other Legion members, right?
Right. And they haven't appeared yet. Right.
Because in 267, Action Comics 267, Supergirl's there, and isn't that the one where Brainiac 5 is also? Aren't they competing, or is that a later issue?
That's 276.
276. Okay, right. I think I wrote that down incorrectly. So so then later we find that Brainiac 5 is joining at that point. So that's later. There was a scene. Well, it's on page 24 as well. Jim is talking about the Legion. That's nothing, Dad. Wait until you see who we're going after to become our next member. And so I was curious, when you read this, who'd you think of?
I first thought Superboy, but it's
right?
Supergirl.
It's Supergirl, because that connects it to the whole Action Comics 267.
Right. But it can't situation. Be Supergirl.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that. Dang it.
But this is an inventory story, so
yeah, that's right.
But it is far enough away from the Crisis, so I think that's why there is no mention of who it is.
Right. Yeah. But it's a nice little nod to us and to longtime readers and all that kind of stuff.
Right. And there was, I'm sure you're probably going to get to it, but there was there was a question in their first appearance, how many Legionnaires are actually in that first appearance? We see 3,
Yep.
but we see many more in the background.
Yeah, just sitting around a table there. Yeah.
Right. So it could, we longtime readers know it's Supergirl. Post crisis reader in a post crisis continuity, it's Superboy, or it's just, let me just leave it open just because,
Yeah.
or it's Kid Quantum, which comes down many years later. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like it can be whoever.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so final thing on this. Oh wait, I did say if you count Triplicate Girl 3 times, then you get 7. Anyway, I also had in my notes, is Invisible Kid there but invisible? Okay, enough of that joke.
Well, because
Um,
there are 3 parents or parental units standing there. 2 Durlins, which is weird.
that is very weird.
Uh, Jim's parents and Gigi,
And
and there's
Gigi,
another couple.
you're right. Uh, so it must be Invisible Kid.
I think he's there.
I think that's the joke. I think that's Levitz's joke and
Could
Swan's
be.
joke.
Yeah, right.
It has to be. Okay. But anyway, to cap this off, I was like, okay, what is the membership order? Where
So
where is that where is that information, right?
good luck.
And so yeah, I did find, okay, so if you accept this, I offer to you, my humble listeners, this listing. So in Legion 300, we get a list, and it is kind of, I mean, it's presented in an order. It's not alphabetical or anything like that. So certain sources I looked at, they consider that the order in which the Legion joined. If you read the Secrets of the Legion series, it's presenting it in chronological order, and they talk about each member as they or they just talk about each member. But you could take that as, here is a listing of Legion members as they became Legion members. So, but it's confusing because Legion 300 implies, like I said, Chameleon Boy, Colossal Boy, and Invisible Kid are members 6, 7, and 8. However, the Secrets of the Legion shows Invisible Kid joining between them. So it'd be Cam, Invisible Kid, and then Colossal Boy. So, I'm not going to quibble over, 7 and 8 versus 6 and 7, that kind of a thing. But it was a fun little distraction, I guess, to fill out this issue. But it did make me, like I said, I love when these stories and or these stories make these connections to previous things, and I then have to go pull out my Legion Silver Age omnibuses and start flipping through and, okay, how does this all connect? I just love being able to do that.
And I'll even throw a deeper wrench into that
Oh, great.
and go against lore. Because when you see the members in Action Comics 267, you could think of it in one or two ways. There's the panel in Action Comics 267 where Cosmic Boy is introducing the new members to Supergirl. And they are in the order from his right: Invisible Kid, Colossal Boy, Chameleon Boy. So that could technically be an order. Or if you go by the way they show their powers, it's Colossal Boy, Invisible Kid, and then Chameleon Boy. Which to me, that order feels more right when you're showing powers. It's almost like, here's the order of our team, So I don't know. That's why all of it never really. And then when you eliminate Supergirl, there's some instances where they're putting Starboy in that position. Although in issue 306, he says he's the 13th member, but some people say he's the 9th member. Like it all bounces around. Who knows, I feel the same way. If more than one character joins at the same time, they're interchangeable,
Yeah, that's true.
What do you do?
Yeah. But these little bits of trivia data about the Legion. That's one of the fun
Sure.
things about being a fan.
Absolutely. I went on that.
Yeah.
I went on that little excursion myself, and got to the point where I was like, somebody out there knows the order, but then there are also exceptions, and there's also ways you can argue against it. So it's
Yep.
like
Yep.
that's a constant. And note, I've found at least 4 different sources, and they're all different. So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
what are you supposed to do?
So this is the new order now going forward.
Right? Yeah. I mean, it's the new Colossal Boy origin, right?
Yep. Yep.
So, and Levitz was very clear of like, yeah, I know that it contradicts the secret. Whatever, it's okay, It still takes place, whatever. My thing is, I love that he's one of those characters yet again, like many, 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 many other characters, that falls victim to a meteorite.
Right.
And I've long held. I've talked about this on the De La Rios at one point years ago, where the one of 2 proposals I sent into DC in the early 2000s, the one of them had to do with why are there so many people in the DC universe that get hit by meteors, and it all focused on Captain Comet, and he was the main point person, but it's Red Star, it's now, well, Colossal Boy. You could even say Metamorpho to a degree. Blue, let's see, Super Chief, Vandal Savage, Immortal Man. I mean, there's all these characters, right? So my whole thing was a controller went to the source wall and was trying to chip a piece of it off, causing a huge explosion that sent all these fragments through time and space.
Oh, that's awesome.
And that's why all the powers are different, because
Yeah.
it has affected them. And then the whole thing was that he had to gather them together, and for whatever reason, and then they'd realize, oh, we're all kind of from the same point, even though our powers are different. They all stem from this one incident of this crazed controller trying to do whatever.
Oh my God, Peter.
Ain't that awesome? It's a great story,
Yeah,
right?
that is blowing my mind. I want to read that story.
I have it more fleshed out. I think, like I said, there was an episode from the De La Rios, and I have it in one of my notes. It was like Captain Com. It was for his 50th anniversary. He's called the Man of Destiny. He was going to be a little bit older, and he was going to be, it was a space opera kind of story. It was a space opera ensemble, probably inspired by 5 years later, and just this whole connective thing. And now I can throw Colossal Boy in, because I totally forgot that he was part of it, part of that same trope, that origin trope.
Radiation. It's always radiation.
Always radiate. Always radiate.
Which is interesting. So the implication is, of course, because when that meteor falls and almost hits him, knocks him off his sand ski thing, and he's unconscious, but he gets irradiated by the meteor, right? But Gigi is right there, and takes him, presumably picks him up and takes him to the medical center. So the radiation just didn't affect her. So, but why? I mean, it's a weird kind of oversight thing, but
Right.
Whatever.
Yeah. Okay. The only other notes I have, one is a semi-larger point. One is a very small point. No pun intended. Do you know who the escaped prisoner is?
No, but based on, again, the letter column, it implies a certain character that we're going to be seeing soon.
Okay,
I imagine
you were spoiled by that letter column, as I was.
I think I was, yeah.
Yeah, which I was like, oh,
yeah,
because I did not make that connection. I mean, there was some mystery about who it is. We don't have to say it for now, but
right,
because the issue doesn't say it. There was some mystery, but then I quickly forgot about it. And then when I read that letter, then certain things kind of make sense about covers from a later issue. Like I was like, okay, things
Mm-hmm.
start to make sense now. So
Yeah.
I wish I wouldn't have read it, but that's the nature of the podcast. So
Yeah, yeah.
uh,
It will add a certain dimension or depth to it,
right,
perhaps. So
right.
we'll see.
The second thing is, what's Gigi's classic physical trait?
Classic physical trait.
What's her physical trait?
I'm not sure. I don't know. I'm not sure where you're going with this.
Her little chin mole,
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
right?
Okay,
Which is in this issue,
okay,
right? We see it clearly, several panels. She's got her little chin mole on the left hand side.
right. Oh, do we have a
In that,
continuity issue?
yes, a little either an error or Levitt's retcon. This is like
I missed it.
a little retcon of himself. In 306, in that flashback Starboy story, when we see her with Chief Zendak, she does not have the mole until she is struck by a prisoner with his gun right across her chin.
Oh, okay.
We don't see her anymore in that flashback story, but you could infer that that's not a birthmark, it's a
Scar.
scar of some point.
Okay.
But that story takes place once she gets to Takron Galtos after this story. So she has the mole here.
Uh-huh.
So is that just Levitt's way of saying, okay, maybe it doesn't make sense that it's a scar. Maybe it should just be a cute mole, Or did no one give Kurt Swan the note that, oh, by the way, don't draw her
Mm-hmm.
with the mark on her chin?
Yeah, I'm sure that was it.
Yeah. So who knows? Very little. I wrote to my
Wow.
notes, Gigi's mole.
Oh my God. And the way that if you look at the difference between how LaRoque draws it and how Swan draws it, you know, Swan or maybe it's the inker. It's just a tiny little dot, literally a dot on her on her face, whereas it's a little more prominent when LaRoque draws it.
And look at the cover.
Yeah.
She has it as adult Gigi, but she does
It's not
not have
there.
it. Yeah.
Oh, see, yeah, that's it. That's it. So Lytle knew the
Of course,
details.
because he's a detail man.
Yeah.
Yep. So that's it. Those are all my notes. We end on. I end my notes on Gigi's mole. What do you got left?
All right. Let's see. I have said on this podcast before that um Kurt Swan is not necessarily my favorite artist. However, the guy, like we mentioned before, I mean, he's drawn all this stuff, the backgrounds and the designs and all the alien creatures. I mean, he's a great artist. I just want to I want to counter what I may have said earlier.
Are you retconning your thoughts?
I am. Well, I'm adding to them. I am.
Okay.
Anyway, I was really struck this issue by his skill as an artist, not just in what we are seeing in the panels, but the way, perhaps in some ways, like if you look at page 10, where's 10? The way, so we get all these oddly shaped panels. There's even one with kind of a zigzaggy pattern to it to cut the panels. That's not what I want to focus on, but he does that a lot in the issue. And then the other page I want to look at, or maybe one of the other pages I want to mention, he does that too. But the way that he draws your attention, and maybe this is part of the letter as well, the caption boxes, the way your eye is drawn in a reverse kind of S shape or snake-like fashion, it's just wonderfully done.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so subtle that you're not even really paying attention to it, but the way that he does it with, and the characters are overlapping in some cases in one panel over a panel, so you clearly see them, and just the the chase scene between Jim and Gigi, which I don't know. They're supposed to, I know they're on break, but at the same time they're doing an investigation in their uniform, and then they're just chasing each other around this uh what is it they're at?
Medical center.
Is it the medical center, or is it
They're
a
recuperating.
resort?
He's recuperating. Yeah.
Uh, yeah, they're playing tag in the lobby of one of Mars's posh resorts.
Oh, right, right. Yeah.
Really, you're going to do that in your science police officer uniform? Anyway, but I just love he does a wonderful job of constructing the your eye across the page, right?
Right.
And then on what is it? Page 18, in the lower right area. So they're looking for the escapee, and we see these successive overlapping panels coming. You get a slightly wide shot, and he starts closing in on their faces. And at the very bottom, they're both looking across the page at the next page. Again, if this were an odd page, that would be even better, because that's your page turn right there. It's like, what are they looking at? Right. So it's just wonderfully done.
Yeah. Where he might lack in sensationalism,
Mm-hmm.
he more than makes up for in terms of these, first of all, anatomy,
Yep.
and secondly, these characters have weight within the panels and within the pages. I absolutely believe that they are standing or sitting, or he's rubbing her back, or they're hugging, little slight head nod tilts, right? Not everybody's directly straight up with their head when they talk. Some tilting goes on.
Mm-hmm.
Little, just little perspective things um, could teach modern artists
Oh my God,
so
yes.
much.
Yeah. Yeah. The guy was just a phenomenal craftsman
Yeah,
in terms of how to draw characters, but also construct a page to set a scene. He was a master.
right. Even I've often had criticism that about LaRocque, that sometimes I feel like his characters sort of just float or stand very, you're looking so direct on. There's no camera shift,
Mm-hmm.
um, spaceships going through the sky, and you're seeing exactly from their profile shot, which is the most boring, way you could draw a spaceship. Um, Kurt Swan's not like that. So again, maybe he's not sensational. It's not expressive, but there is expression, and there's very real body language.
Yeah.
And I don't know if Perez learned anything from him. I don't remember, but it certainly feels that way.
Boy,
Um,
I think you could, even if it wasn't the case, I could totally see a connection between what
yeah,
Swan's doing and what Perez, because Perez was the modern version of that
sure.
to
Yeah.
me
Mm-hmm.
completely.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
all right. So you mentioned before about Swan, about he doesn't like to draw 1,000 characters, right? Would you like to hear some other things that Kurt Swan himself
Yes, please.
has said about working on the Legion?
I can't wait. They were
So
all such grumpy old men back then.
this was eye-opening, I have to say. I mean, I knew that because of what Levitt said in that letter column, right? But
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
okay, so this is from the Legion Companion. In 1983, in this interview, Swan said this about his time on the Legion. Quote, horrendous. Too many characters involved. It was painstaking and boring work. Okay. In 1992, a different interview, he said regarding what he might work on after he stopped working on Superman. This is in 1985. So, right here. Oh, this is 87. Sorry. So, shortly before this, quote, I said, this is Swan saying this, I said, don't involve me in the Legion. I'll quit first. So despite his feelings for the Legion, in times past, he comes here in issue 39 and does a phenomenal job
He
of
does the
telling
job.
Colossal Boy's story, origin story.
Right. And kudos for Levitz because was Swan drawing a lot of comics in 1987? I don't know. we're post crisis. He's not drawing Superman anymore.
That's
So,
right. Hmm.
Levitz is like, I'm going to keep giving you some work here. You either do the work or you don't work.
And he, one thing I didn't include in my notes, but since we're talking about it, he did what Swan did say in terms of, what was your favorite thing to do, or what do you feel like is your legacy? And he talked about his Superman work,
Yeah,
which,
sure.
duh, yeah.
Right. Yeah. I mean, he's around 66 or 67 at this point in 1987. So,
Well, and so, given that, I mean, you look at his work here and you look at some of his earlier work, it's like it's practically the same. And that's just amazing to me because even with like Perez, as he was getting on there in the 90s, 2000s when I was seeing his work, it's like this is different.
right.
It's the same, but it's different.
Right.
You could tell. Whereas I look at this and this is, oh yeah, this is Kurt Swan. This is the Kurt Swan I read in Adventure Comics. This is the Kurt Swan I read in Superman comics. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I did want to I don't know if we want to where we want to go next, Peter, but I did have some letter column quotes as well.
Okay.
Reaction to this issue from
Great.
the readers. Um, and I will say what I said at the top of the episode, I already had that in my notes. I already had that thought before I read this. But Kevin from Kansas City agreed with me about Colossal Boy. You'd think that since Gigi narrated the story, Jim would have seemed larger than life, which I thought was a nice pun, in more ways than one. Ginger of Oak Lawn, Illinois, didn't care for the quote women's lib type ending.
Was the 80s.
Oh boy. Steve of DeKalb, Illinois, thought the issue was, quote, a wonderful change of pace from the Universo/election/time trapper stories, which, we talked about that before. He also mused that Gigi should have more to do in the upcoming Starfinger story. So, and then finally, Joe from New Jersey, lots of Eastern United States people getting printed here, wanted a Chemical King casebook story like this one. To which Paul replied, given that I think he said in his first tenure as writer on the Legion, he was the one who wrote the story that killed off Chemical King. That maybe it was a way to make some amends for that, I guess.
There is one part of the letter column about this issue, but it's not about this issue, but it's from the issue about this issue. Paul answers a question from Steve about Sunboy being able to hurt Superman in the Superboy story.
Mm-hmm.
And Paul's response is basically, go ask John Byrne. Like he said, he doesn't say it so snarkily, but he says, well, that was what Byrne did in that chapter. And then he says, well, maybe it's because there's some Red Sun stuff, in Sunboy's power that could negate Superman's power. But I kind of walked away with it and thought, when we were talking about the Superboy story, there was a lot of like, what is coming from Byrne's point of view and what is coming from Levitz's point of view, and why is the meat of it in Byrne's point of view? Because it's, whose problem is it? Is it a Legion problem that there's no Superboy, or is it the Superman's problem that there's no connection to you know what I mean? So it made me wonder, did Byrne hold that much power in 1987? Which is, the answer is probably yes.
Mm-hmm.
That he could negate or not negate, but he could totally add things that without checking in with Mr. Legion himself, Paul Levitz,
Right.
It's, or it was because Byrne was very aware that he wanted to show that this was not the all-powerful Superman, so that if the Legion are supposed to be the height of their abilities, yes, Sunboy could create flame so powerful that it could it makes Superman notice that, oh my God, that's like the strength of 10,000 suns or whatever he says, you know.
Hmm.
So I just thought that was, he's like, yeah, Byrne did it. So I was like, wow, okay. Is that all your notes then?
I think so. Yeah,
Okay.
that's
Uh,
it.
One other thing about this issue, let's talk about the ads real quick
Oh,
because the ads, first of all, we have a Doom Patrol ad, which will feature Steve Lytle artwork,
oh, that's right.
and not for many issues because, as he often talks about, he was a young. He was very young and very brash and didn't stick up for himself. But look at that spread. The original Hard Luck Heroes are back from the grave, or are they the Doom Patrol? Which is basically the front and back cover to issue number 1. Paul Kupperberg, Steve Lytle, Gary Martin. I definitely picked that issue, that series up. For, I don't know if it was necessarily for the Steve Lytle artwork, but I definitely picked it up and it was beautiful.
I did not. But had I been reading uh, those Steve Lytle drawn Legion issues, I probably would have. Plus, I have one of my best friends growing up is a huge Doom Patrol fan, and it's possible that I may have read some of his issues.
Okay.
And so back then we would he would read my Legion books, and I would read some of his stuff, and so we just kind of traded back and forth to read. So I read a lot of things back then that I never bought. So and didn't feel like I needed to go back and get. But I don't know. I might be interested in reading those Steve Lytle drawn Doom Patrol issues at some point.
It's on the app.
Good.
Only the first 5 issues.
No.
Yeah,
Are they?
wasn't on long.
What? So is that it? He only did the first 5.
I think so. And then Eric Larson took over.
Oh.
And then eventually Morrison would take over with issue 19 and it would become a whole other book. But yeah,
Oh, right. Yeah.
that was one of those books again that Lytle, he just couldn't, his artwork was just too detailed for a
Oh,
monthly schedule.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Um, and then the other ad we should talk about is the Amethyst ad. With beautiful artwork by Esteban Maroto, story by Keith Giffen and Mindy Newell, right? We've talked about Mindy before
Mm-hmm.
in terms of Legion. This is the 4-issue miniseries. This is the third volume, because we had a 12-issue maxi series, then we had a 16-issue series somewhere around there with like an annual and a special, and then there was a 4-issue series. This is Keith Giffen basically playing DC cleanup. DC, he was like DC's golden boy during this post-crisis era, right? Because he was always fixing everybody. Aquaman, Dr. Fate, and now, the Legion multiple times, and now he's doing it with Gemworld with Amethyst. Gemworld enjoyed 20 years of peace, but now a demented evil is brewing and only one person can stop it. Experience Amethyst's amazing rebirth. Witness her triumphs and tragedies to save her beloved Gemworld. Discover the secret origin of Mordru, the 30th century mad arch of sorcerer. Will this all-out battle affect the future of the Legion of Superheroes? And how does Dr. Fate fit into it all? Find out in this 4-issue epic miniseries. So we are going to have to read it.
Is this on the app too?
I'll check.
I did not know that this. I totally missed the whole. How does this affect the future of the Legion? And I don't remember anything having to do with Amethyst going forward. Not that there wasn't. I just don't remember. So yeah, I want to read this.
And as a origin of Mordru, it certainly means something. So we'll do it in like our second segment of an episode, right, where we take a look at the Legion throughout the larger DC universe. So we don't have to go in depth, but it'll be fun to read it and just make some connections. It is not on the app.
Okay.
So I'm sure I can. I have the issues, so I'm sure we'll get a hold of it for you. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Um, but yeah, it is as far as the connection. That little blurb is probably more promotional more than anything, but
Mm,
that story also then kind of touches on his appearance within JSA many, many, many years later, you know, and it does resonate. It's funny
okay.
how they mix in Legion of Superheroes, Doctor Fate, you know, because it was their way of sort of connecting many things, just like my source wall meteorite thing, you know. And it'll all make sense once we actually get to it in a couple. It won't be for another bunch of episodes. So
Yeah, Giffen, even though he hasn't been actively part of the Legion, at least in this run, right, for a long while now, he sure likes to dip his toes into the Legion stuff.
yeah,
But I love that. This whole idea just sounds really cool, and the connections between the future and Doctor Fate and
right.
this. I know how beloved this character, this series is to you. Um, but you know, this weird offshoot of DC continuity that is there, but it didn't really connect to a whole lot of anything else until much later.
Until this, until the
Okay,
crisis, and until this miniseries. Yeah,
that's true. And then
yeah.
and more recently, you know, Bendis was playing around in that with his
Mm-hmm.
Wonder Comics line. So
Mm-hmm. It's an IP just waiting to get a whole
right,
bunch of people onto it.
young woman, magic powers, princess.
Colors,
Yeah, it's all there.
gems, it's all there. It's all there.
Stupid Discovery. Okay, I'm unfairly putting it all in Discovery. I know.
All right. Well, let's wrap up. We have just one or two things here. First, have to give a huge shout out once again, and a you know a bevy of thanks and you know um, love that this person continues to support the show. Charlton Hero Chris tweeted out a while back. I don't have a sometime in like the past couple weeks. Do you like the Legion of Superheroes? Looking for great Legion of Superheroes content online? Look no further than the Legion Project podcast with two amazing hosts, and he tags us as they cover the famous Baxter run issue by issue and much, much more. Flight rings on, and created this animated GIF
Yeah,
to celebrate our podcast.
yeah, that was so cool.
So,
And he had messaged me, direct messaged me about this, asking about, you know, asked me a question, and then because it was around, I think I was maybe visiting my daughter or something. Anyway, I got busy and I didn't respond. I didn't see the message until after he already posted it, and so I apologize for that. But yeah, that was so cool.
yeah.
Oh, I also have, I don't know if you know, you probably didn't see this because he didn't tag you, Peter. This is about our live chat. So
Okay.
this is, or maybe I don't know if we've talked about this. If so, you could cut it out. But this is about our Tales of the Legion Project live chat. This is Max Reed's comics. He had just retweeted or tweeted out the link to the episode on my feed, but coming at you live, the Legion, with this excellent chat from us. So I just wanted to say thank you for that too.
Very cool.
So that you said one or two. Is there another one? One or
Well,
two things?
the contest.
Oh, okay. Yes, we had a contest. Peter, remind me. We talked about that. When did we launch that?
I think that was the big episode 50.
So I had purchased a Legion of Superheroes trade, Volume 2. The More Things Change. This is collecting issues, I think 7 through 12. We announced this trade, and we have a winner, and it is Ed Moore
Dun, dun.
from Teal Productions. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Co-host of Comic Addiction, co-host of the Superman Super Show, and does a whole bunch of solo podcasting and podcasting with his wife. Yeah,
wasn't he also on
he was
one
on
of your?
He was on our live chat.
The live chat. Duh. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. So there you go. Congratulations, Ed. I will send that to you as soon as I can after you give me an address. So just email me where I should send this, and I'll get that out to you post haste.
Awesome. Okay. Well, we should talk about our next episode because it will not be a regular Legion Project episode. It will be a Tales episode because in publishing continuity, the next issue is an annual, and that's where we cover the annual. So it's Legion of Superheroes annual number 3. That will be our next episode. So again, possibly it's another issue that may not have any ramifications of the or consequences of the Superboy story, you know. So it'll be interesting once we get back to, I guess, issue 40 maybe. So we have to do another side story. But we'll see. I don't think I've ever read this issue. I don't think I've ever read it. It's been in my collection for decades. I've never read it.
I think I'm in the same boat. The cover has always struck me the way, because I don't remember. I can't tell. I can't read the writing on the cover. I don't have my glasses on, right. But it's always struck me as an interesting cover. Plus, it also features some of the substitute. No, well, it has Night Girl, but I think it's a Legion Academy related story.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm looking forward to this.
Good. So that will be our next episode. All right. If you have feedback, you can send it to peter@thedailyrios.com or
longboxreview@gmail.com.
Eric, we're back into the groove of doing these episodes.
So yeah, here we are. So that we're recording at the end of or middle-ish of December 2022. I don't know when Peter's going to be able to get this out, but yeah, this is like this, even though it's still 2022, this is like, here we are, 2023 Legion Project podcast is back.
Yeah. So,
and one last thing before we sign up, Peter, happy belated birthday.
Oh, thank you. Well, then, and happy upcoming birthday for you.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. So we'll just give each other $20 and it'll all wash out. So keep the 20. I'll keep my 20. It all washes out. All right. As always, long live the Legion Project Podcast. See ya.
Bye, Peter.